こんにちは、ジェニーです。私の YouTube チャンネルへようこそ。パチパチパチパチパチパチパチ。今日は日本語の発音を向上させるための動画ですが、全部英語で進めていきますので、ぜひぜひ最後まで楽しんでくださいね。Let's go! My name's Jenny. For those of you who are new to my YouTube channel, which is probably all of you since this was my first YouTube video, I would like to give you a brief introduction about my experience. I was born and raised in China until the age of 10 when I moved to the States with my mom. With that being said, Mandarin Chinese will be considered my first language, English being my second, and Japanese being my third or fourth because I also kind of took Spanish in high school. The reason why I wanted to make this video is because I know how it can get intimidating when you first learn a foreign language, especially speaking in front of the native speakers. You tend to get very conscious over your own accent. You tend to get nervous when they ask you to repeat yourself, even though it could be that they just had trouble hearing you and it has nothing to do with your accent. So, if you want to work on your Japanese pronunciation and speaking, this video is designed for you. Heads up, this video is not sponsored by anyone, meaning that all the resources that I mentioned in this video are the ones that I personally found helpful. Tip number 1, create the language environment. If you like to watch Japanese anime or listen to Japanese music, watch Japanese drama, you're already in the right starting point. Just because you live in the country doesn't mean that you're going to be fluent. Just because you don't live in the country doesn't mean that you cannot create an environment where you consciously use those language on a daily basis. Even if you're living in Japan, it is not guaranteed that you're gonna speak fluent Japanese if you don't take a step further and be conscious to talk with the native Japanese speakers. Stop watching things, dramas, or TV shows in your own language. When I was living in Japan, I found myself in a situation where most of my friends are all international students. And of course, because we're international students, we tend to use English or Chinese because we're just more comfortable. There's no reason for us to use Japanese. So, one thing I did is I signed up for a share house with like a couple hundred people living in the same building. I was able to talk with the Japanese native speakers. Many of them didn't speak English. So if I want to become friends with them, I have to speak Japanese. Well, I shouldn't say I have to. I get to use Japanese. And there's a public area where people tend to gather and have parties and do all sorts of stuff. Even though that share house is on the top of a mountain that made my commute going from 20 minutes to school to 2 hours, I'm still very glad that I took that one step further. Now, if you're not in Japan, you have to be even more careful when selecting your environment. Only listen and watch in Japanese if possible. Instead of watching the latest Netflix shows, I would start with doing the things you like, but in Japanese. For me, I found it especially helpful watching Japanese romantic reality shows such as Terrace House, Wagon, Bachelor Japan, or Love is Blind in Japan. The reason why I recommend watching Japanese reality shows is because the language they use in anime or drama tend to be more specific to a certain theme. You don't really use the word kisama, but you hear that all the time in Japanese anime. On the other hand, for Japanese reality shows, the words they use, the conversation you hear, tend to be the ones you hear on a daily basis. If you would like to have some idea to start watching Japanese reality shows, feel free to look at the description below where I'm going to put down some of my favorite Japanese reality shows names. Tip number 2, find your local language speaking community. If you're currently in college or school, this is very easy for you. Talk with your language instructor. Go to your school study abroad office. Ask them if there's currently any Japanese speaking communities that you can join. Any exchange students from Japan who are trying to learn your language. Maybe you can teach them English or Spanish, and they can teach you Japanese in return. Is there a local Japanese festival? Is there a Japanese garden in the area? Is there a Japanese speaking club? Where can you find more people who also speaks Japanese? Find a friend who speaks your target language is the best way to learn a language in a fun way. If you already graduate school or don't have access to such resource, utilize language exchange platforms such as HelloTalk or Seiwayu if you're in Japan. It allows you to practice your target language while helping someone learning yours. For example, if you're trying to learn Japanese, you could practice Japanese with a native Japanese speaker, apply the language you learn. This is a different kind of learning than textbook or passive learning. Make a social media post and let people know that you're looking for people who are trying to learn Japanese. Take this opportunity to make some friends. Don't just stick with one way. I'm pretty sure I might get judged with this. When I first moved to Japan, and this is before the start of my Japanese program, literally don't know anyone who speaks Japanese. I downloaded Tinder and I started swiping on Tinder so that I could practice Japanese with Japanese guys and sometimes girls. This sounds crazy, but the point is, when you really want something, if you really want something to happen, there's always a way. I'm not saying downloading Tinder is your way, but you get the idea. Tip number 3, train your tongue muscles with shadow reading and tongue twisters. 生もぎ生米生卵すもももももももものうちかもしかもしかも確かに仕方が足かは確か仕方はない Look up the word 早口言葉 which means tongue twisters in Japanese. Look up 朗読 or 音読 which means reading aloud in Japanese. There are a gazillion free resources on YouTube available provided by native Japanese speakers. You could also purchase Japanese textbooks that comes with a recording, which I think it's also a good idea because putting down a certain amount of money in the beginning tend to serve as a great extrinsic motivation, especially if you're the type of person who likes to get your money back. Well, I know I am. Other than YouTube, there are also other resources such as Himalaya, which is a Chinese app where there's a lot of radios and audio recording books for free. The international version is called Himalaya. That's available for download on App Store. There's also other free resources like NHK News, which has recordings of simple news designed for foreigners who are learning Japanese. If you have iPhone, download the app Yasashii Nihongo or Todai Japanese, which not only has the Japanese transcript, but it also has the hiragana on top of the kanji so that you can read the passage along. Both of which has a free version, which I think is already sufficient if you're trying to get the practice. If you do like the app, you can consider getting the premium version, but the free version has been working fine for me, so I do recommend. I'm not sure if these apps are available for Android users, but I'm sure you'll find something similar on Google Play. If you know someone who speaks Japanese, kindly ask them to record the passage that you want to read and let them know that this will be used for shadow reading purposes. Let them know that you're trying to improve your Japanese pronunciation. Tell them to correct your pronunciation. Don't be shy. As long as you let them know up front that they won't offend you if they stop you in the middle of a sentence and that you're genuinely trying to improve your Japanese pronunciation, chances are they're willing to help you because, it's just part of our human nature. Another thing I also recommend is to record your before and after as you practice shadow reading or tongue twister. One of the things that I felt like threw me off as I was working on my Japanese pronunciation is that I don't see an immediate progress. You don't really know if your Japanese improved or not until you hit a certain threshold. One way I found very beneficial is to record your voice as you read a passage for the first time versus after 1 week of practice, 1 month of practice. You'll be in shock how much you've improved, even if it's just 5 minutes a day. We tend to be motivated when we see immediate progress. But unfortunately, when you're trying to build a new skill or make a change in your life, most likely the progress is not so immediate. And we tend to get unmotivated, especially if you worked so hard on it. And that's why a lot of people stop before they reach that fluency level. This leads to my last tip. Set realistic expectations. I want to share this quote from the book Atomic Habits written by James Clear. And that quote is, "Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become." Language learning is a long game. The last thing you want to do is for you to try so hard and not attaining the result you want, yet lost the motivation that got you started in the first place. Don't get frustrated if you think that your Japanese is not improving, because it is. I know I used to get very frustrated when people are surprised that I lived in the States for 16 years, maybe because I have a weird accent as I speak English. and I just closed myself up. And the problem with that is my English tanked. I didn't sound like I've lived in the States for 10 years already when I went to college. So I decided to do something different. When I started learning Japanese, I convinced myself that it is okay I have an accent. I mean, who cares? People know that I'm learning a new language. Of course there's gonna be accent. Of course there's gonna be words that I don't know how to use. Of course my sentence structures are gonna sound weird. But I can never get better if I don't try. The more I try, the better I'll be. Even if I don't see any results yet. But I know I will. And I know when you learn a language, becoming fluent or speak like a native seems so far away when you're just getting started. Sometimes you just have to be at peace with yourself. What it matters is that you tried your best in this current circumstance. It's only a matter of time that you're going to reach the goal you want. So, what's your goal in 2025? If you have any thoughts or comments that you want to share, feel free to drop it in the comment section below. Who knows? Maybe this video will be the perfect opportunity for you to find another person who is also trying to learn Japanese. For those of you who have stayed and watched my video until this point, which I hope there's at least a few of you, I want to thank you for staying and watch me ramble and talk for so long because I never had this kind of experience in my life. I hope you the best of luck in your language learning journey, and I hope that just as I'm working to become a YouTuber, I hope you the best of luck to become the person you want to be. Thank you. And I look forward to see you in my next video.